Hey guys, thank you for tuning into my presentation where we'll be looking at two articles as well as two academic journals accompanying them. The articles that I chose to cover are the Analects of Confucius as well as using performance measures in the federal budgeting process. I chose the Analects of Confucius because I wanted to understand the earliest philosophies of public administration. Confucius believed people are naturally inclined to be governed. Human nature tends to follow universal though reciprocal obligations, for example, a son submitting to his father. And without people, government is essentially dead. In government, roles are clearly defined. For example, a prince is a prince, not something else. And government officials must seek to perfect others, desires what's good for others, and then people will naturally follow governmental control. It's not easy to be a government official, and a good government still needs time to change the ways of society. It is a slow process. Government should keep locals happy, attracting outsiders, and they also must know the force of their own words before applying it to others. Kaplan focused specifically on responsibilities when looking at the Analects of Confucius. Responsibilities are not dependent on cause or intention, but instead they are dependent on communal obligations. It starts individually, and then the collective individuals within a group then collaborate. And politics really is the execution of moral responsibility. Responsibility is when people care authentically about what's right, combining duty as well as obligation. And it's this inclination and obligation working in tandem that build moral maturity. And this is the core roots of why most of us are in government careers. We either want or feel the need to better society. Next, looking at using performance measures in the federal budgeting process, I chose this to gain more insight of private versus public sectors for our Week 8 assignment. Performance measures are difficult to implement in the public sector. They could be helpful in resource allocation, financial management, and financial reports. However, they vastly different from the private sector because the private sector focuses mostly on profit. And the purposes of the public sector changes depending on the program, and it's very subjective. Objectives in the public sector also are vastly different, and they could conflict. You could evaluate the public sector by input, output, and outcome. However, when you're comparing these, for example, in output and outcome, the linkage is often unclear because of unknown influences and outside factors, and these performance measures may misinform policymakers. It's also possible that analysts of data may skew results in order to gain personal advantages. Looking at Stirk and Shears, they apply performance budgeting across 7 AECD countries. They use a multi-case study to compare the different budgeting systems, and they find that the newest trend actually leans towards accrual budgeting. If you're trying to implement performance budgeting, there are 4 big conditions. You have to align pre-existing fiscal framework, create legislative interest, provide high-quality results, as well as establish proper leadership and authority in office. And in the selected countries, performance really had little effect on decision-making. It had more of an effect on internal management of departments. And that's easier to spot in smaller divisions today, where you can judge individual performance. However, when you expand your views on government, it does show the limitations that performance-based budgeting has. These are the references that I used for this presentation, and I wish you all the best of luck with your critical assignment on Week 8.